Hi, this is Maggie. Welcome back and warm welcome to anybody who's new here. This week's episode is very timely and particularly important if you are considering a career change, a career transition, if you're worried about being laid off, or if you already received your notice. So listen through this whole episode. It's very rich. I'm talking to Nancy Bonamy, who's a transition coach who's focusing on humanitarians and expat spouses. And we talk about reinvention, career changes, moves from the humanitarian to the private sector and back. So tune in and enjoy. You're listening to Leadership's Insights, Navigating Career and Life. I am Maggie Rombach, your host, bringing inspiring stories and practical advice on leadership, career development, and work-life balance. Welcome to Leadership's Insights, brought to you by Maggie's Mindset Mastery Academy. And today I have another expert guest. I'm super excited to have you here, Nancy. So today we're talking to Nancy Bonamy, who is a transition coach. And so we'll be talking certainly about transitions, also your personal transitions. So let's kick it off that way. Who are you and what are you aiming to achieve?
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much, Maggie, for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you to have a chat or to have a discussion. So about me, that's the vast question about who I am and what do I do. But basically, I'm Swiss. I'm currently living in Yaoundé. Speaking a little bit about myself, I was born in Kinshasa. I grew up for a few years in Germany, and then most of my childhood in Switzerland, in a small village there. And at 21 years old, I decided to go abroad, and it was my first expatriation in Madagascar, and it's now 30 years actually that I live abroad, with a return back to Switzerland actually this year after 30 years as an expat. So yes, regarding my life, I have experienced 4 big career changes. Speaking about transitions, I started as a teacher for primary school, then I worked for a few years as an impresario manager for professional musicians. After that, I worked 10 years with the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC, in different field position and as well at headquarters at the end. And now it's about 10 years that I work as a transition coach, career life coach, mainly accompanying humanitarian workers, expatriate spouses or expatriates when they are facing a transition. Yes, that's a bit about me. Maybe I'm a mom of 2 teenagers, so I'm an expat with a family, but I started as a single person. And yes, like you said, there were a lot of personal and professional transition, like for everybody. I think we all experience a lot of them. And like for everybody, some of them were very easy to do transition, other were more difficult, some were chosen, some were imposed. But what I often say is what is great is that in the end, the outcome is always positive, with something positive coming out from any transition, basically.
Thank you.
That's a bit about myself, maybe.
And that's already really inspiring because, as you know, I've been really kind of digging deeper in the whole topic of transitions, and it's really great. I mean, I love the phrase you just said. In the end, there's always something positive coming out of it. So that's great. And also one of the things that we wanted to explore today is around identity and how identity changes in transitions or not. Because also you wrote in one of your newsletters, and for listeners out there, Nancy has a great newsletter, so follow her on LinkedIn if you're not doing that yet. So you did talk about identity also particularly for expats. And so I think it's just a vast area to explore. So maybe to start the conversation, what role does identity play when working with humanitarians, expatriates, and accompanying spouses?
Okay, yes, it's true that for me, at least for me, identity is very linked, or transitions are very linked to identity, or vice versa. in the sense whenever we experience a big change in our life or a transition, it has an impact probably on our identity. And it's something that we are not always aware of or indirectly aware of. And regarding identity, what is interesting is to really understand that our identity changes over life, depending on our life experiences, of our learnings, of what's happening in our life. We have different identities in our identity, a professional identity, a personal identity. For the family, we have one, social identity. Even on social media, we have an identity. So there are different parts in it. And with each big change, there is a reshaping reshaping part of our identity. And for example, when we become a parent, our identity changes because we have a new identity, something new there. When we change job, we change our identity. When we lose our job, it's the same. When we have a new one, it's the same. Because you asked for humanitarian, expatriate, accompanying spouses, it's the same. Whenever you become a humanitarian or whenever you leave the sector of the humanitarian sector, then your identity is impacted. Same for an expatriate and an accompanying spouse. And I think what is maybe particular or not, but it's what I know, it's when we speak about humanitarians, expatriates, accompanying spouses, it's an identity that has an impact on all domains of your lives, on different life sphere. Humanitarian, it's not, or an expatriate, when an expatriate goes abroad for its work, it has an impact on the family, on the environment, on the social life, on everything. It's the same for the others. So in this sense, it's very important to be aware about this identity. And maybe before discussing the specific challenges of humanitarians and expat spouses or expat in general, I think one thing that is interesting to grasp or to understand is that in our society today, do we want it or not, it's a fact. In our society, the professional identity has a very huge weight. And that's something to take into account, and it's one of the challenge, I believe, as well. But it's true that if you find yourself unemployed, for example, you feel like you have really lost your stature or lost your identity in our society, because it's perceived like that. It's often the first thing people ask you, what do you do in your life, and then you answer with regard to your profession. So it's something with a big weight, and that can define you a lot. And we'll discuss that later, but it's it's of course the case as a humanitarian or as an expat spouse. So it's important to understand that. But then there are as well, for me, for example, like I just mentioned, when I became a mom, this new identity had a huge impact on how I was perceiving the life, on my priorities. It had an impact on my professional choices, so that's as well something that was important. So I don't know if I answered your question,
no,
but that's more
great.
about identity in general. And then it's true that for expats, for expat, or mainly for humanitarians and expat spouses, there are specific challenges as well regarding identity.
And there's so many ideas that came up because I could connect to so many bits. But maybe before we go there, because I also remember you posting at one point about also how tough it was for you to become the accompanying spouse, right? Because you've been basically the kick-ass manager yourself, and suddenly you're the +1. So maybe you could talk a little bit to that, how that was challenging and how you ultimately, turned that into something really positive.
Yeah, very good question. And I see that you are a good follower. You are really listening to me. But it's true that for me, big change was to become a mom, with a lot of questioning around that. And at the same time, I was working in the ICRC at that time. So I decided it was a choice to leave the ICRC, but still, after all these years in this humanitarian sector, it was difficult for me to leave, or difficult for me to define what could be the next professional chapter after such a big chapter. And by coincidence or unexpectedly, my husband was offered a position abroad. So it's the only years we were in Switzerland. Actually, we spent 5 years in Switzerland that time. and then we decided, okay, we move. But for me, it meant to not have a job and to endorse this statue of accompanying spouse. And that, I should say, it's one of the biggest challenge, because suddenly you are it's not a very good, suddenly you have a role that nobody really understands, that is not valued, that is not understood, and that the society don't really consider as being important. So you feel, even in your social life, when people ask you, what do you do? It's to say, okay, I'm at home. So it was really difficult to endorse that. And it took me time to find my place and to reinvent myself. And I finally did it. I had the chance to do that, but that's, I think, it's what brought me actually to coaching, and to then decide as well to accompany expat spouses and humanitarian in this big transition. And for me, I think you asked what was the positive outcome of it. It's what you asked, right? Positive outcome, a few. Actually, when I was able to endorse this new statue, it was to find a balance that was great with regard to the family and the kids. What was missing was the professional balance, but at the beginning I had this opportunity. So that was a great outcome. And then I think the other thing is that for the first time in my life, I slowed down, take stock, and reflected on, but now who I am, what do I really want? And what is, and help me by doing that, find out what would be the next chapter. Because up to then I was running, and trying to find out what might be the next chapter without really taking the time to reflect on it. So that was the great outcome. And little by little, I found out that I started to study coaching. Actually, we were in New York at that time, so I studied coaching, life and career coaching. And after that, naturally, it was the dream job that came out to accompany expat spouses and humanitarian in their own transitions.
Thank you. That's really inspiring. And you know, it also, what I see, I think it's difficult for all of us to have this massive disruptive change in identity, but I see that with humanitarians, because, you know, I'm also still at the Red Cross, so we have this joint experience, you know, and I see that with colleagues, that when you have such a purposeful mission and such an amazing thing to do, if you stop doing that, what is left? You know, it really shakes you up in how you perceive yourself as an identity. Yes. So maybe let's go a little bit deeper into that. So what do you see? What is the shakeup on the identity? What is the fear that maybe people feeling, what they're losing, or, you know, what makes people resist a change?
Okay, in general, people resist change. That's normal. We all kind of resist change because it's the unknown, and it's a bit difficult to not resist it. But it's true that, like you mentioned, for humanitarian, what is difficult is to let go of this identity, if it's that the situation. Regarding identity for humanitarian workers, like you said, it's not just choosing a job, it's really choosing a calling. And it's as well a lifestyle as well, especially if you're in the fields. There is as well the question of lifestyle, and again, back to expatriation, where your job has an impact on all all other domains of your lives. And when you are a humanitarian, it's a huge commitment with often very slim or no real distinction between professional, personal, social, and even family life. Especially, again, if you are in the field, because everything is interconnected. Your friends are your colleagues. You live all at the same place, and you know, so there is all of that, and little by little. But I think even at headquarters, there is this feeling of being part of a big family, of something bigger than us, where we help people and we have to be present for them. And there is all of that make this identity very strong, and you start to breathe humanitarian, and you start to feel that it's part of your DNA, DNA. It's really part of you to be a humanitarian. So the day you start to question your job, or the day you lose your job, it's not only that you question that, it's you question your humanity, you question everything, basically. You question kind of your identity as such. And what's happening often is that there are different things, but often you don't know who you are outside this identity, who you are outside humanitarian, what is possible outside, what could be a different chapter, what is as meaningful as this kind of job. And as well, this speaking about fear is how I am perceived by future employer or by other sectors. Do they really understand what I do? There are a lot of stories that we tell ourselves about that are often not so true. It's a question for us to be able to translate what we learned and did during our years in the humanitarian field, but a lot is transferable and understandable for the outside, for other sectors, for even private sectors, for those who want. So it's a lot about that. And I think an additional one, a fear that I see often with my clients as well, is it's a very positive label to be a humanitarian, even if not always understood. It's still positive. People admire us for doing that. And leaving that, it's difficult too. Do I dare to think about going in the private sector after having been in the humanitarian sector? And what will my parents think? What will my friend think? It's so not me, not to be a humanitarian. So it's all that is kind of complicated, and the mix of fear and the mix of what will people think, and the mix of can I really as well live this kind of life? That's as well the big thing. Because can I go back to the normal life in between brackets for the normal life? Am I capable of doing that or not? So that's as well and it's all linked to the identity, to the fact that we are very attached to it. And then, yes, depending on each person, the transition will be easier or a bit more difficult if you are very attached to this part of your identity. Are you a humanitarian or... if I come back to the spouses, for them, they are not so much attached to the label of expat spouse because it's not the most, the most valued one. But for them, it's a lot about perception then. It's what will a future employer think about my 10 years not working? Well, how can I make that? Will they value that? So it's a lot about more the perception of what people may think. And for them, it's as well a bit about, now I have a balance, familial balance, personal balance. And if I go back to work, how do I make sure that I don't lose everything? So it's as well. And they lost a lot of confidence, self-confidence, sometimes even self-esteem by not working, even if it's only 1 year, not working during 1 year, it has an impact on your self-confidence and sometimes self-esteem.
Wow, yeah, that's really a big, complex set of challenges. So trying to bottom line that, so there's a bit about meaning going forward. Can I get the same sense of meaning? The skills, how they're transferable. Also the perception of others, and kind of also even like, do I even want this, right? So this is really like a whole bunch of really big challenges. And what came up particularly on the skills, and this is a book I recently read and I really thought it really made me think in a new way. And it's called The Startup of You. It was written by the founders of LinkedIn. So it's a bit business language, but they talk about soft assets. And what they mean by soft assets is basically everything you did in your life. So even if as an expat spouse, you might have organized your kid's schedule or the community meeting. So actually that might have given you project management skills, whatever, to really look at all the skills that you can then later market when you make the transition. So have you seen that in your work, or do you have one or two concrete examples of, a transition where somebody really made the shift and it turned out, really useful to use those transferable skills, or just any example that pops to your mind that could make it really concrete?
Yeah, there are a lot of examples, but I love what you mentioned about this question of soft assets or soft skills. And it's true, when I work with humanitarian or expat spouses, we really take stock about any skills, not only academical, professional, and personal, but really any skills in any domains. And it's why we list all the experiences they had as well, because from an experience, bad or good, you develop skills as well. So it's really a way to look at it. So very important for, like you said, expat spouses. And like you said, the fact that they were expats, that they had to take care of the whole family, to do the move, to adapt to a new country, to reinvent themselves, sometimes several times, they developed a lot of different skills. So you asked for concrete examples. I have examples for expat spouse and humanitarians. But for example, one expat spouse, she, that was interesting because she was 3 years without working. And feeling very guilty of not even have done some caritative work, or to have done something. She said, I was taking care of the family and I loved sewing a lot, so I did that, but I never even really did something of my time, and she felt guilty about that. And that's often the big thing with expat spouse. You don't feel like you have the right to take time for yourself, and you should do something out of it. And she applied for different jobs, and actually she was told when she quickly found a job, and she was told that she was chosen because she was an expat spouse. And that was for her, wow. And that is the story I say now to all expat spouses. And why? Because it was a position where she was a lot in contact with a difficult public from different, not only origins, but really different social status and so on. So the fact that she was able to adapt to an expat life was for them a big asset. So that's one of the examples. But often I say as well to expat spouses, they all have leadership skills, what they don't believe at the beginning. But to be an expat spouse, you have to have leadership skills for the family, but not only to build a social support system, a social life as well. Often the partner is working a lot and he has not the time for that, to find the right, the landmarks and everything. It's really the leadership skills. So that's one example, one concrete example. Another one about humanitarians. I have, there are a lot of stories about that, but I have really people in the humanitarian sector. One was really willing to go in the private sector, very private sector, and he managed to do so. It was just a question to explain what he did in the field, how it's transferable in the position he was looking for. I have another one who did a complete reconversion.
Nancy, let's stick with that for a second, because you know what I noticed, within the Red Cross, until very recently, I was working on partnerships, right? And what I realized is sometimes, particularly with the private sector, it's almost perceived as like this big nasty guy, company X, which is almost seen like the company is a person itself. But the private sector is much more nuanced that, because there are many different departments in a company as well. So when this person made this change from the humanitarian to the private sector, where did he or she go within the private sector? So where could they find the angle where their skills was most relevant? Was that in like...
No, it's interesting how you are framing it, because actually what is important is first to identify what they want.
Absolutely, yeah.
And whatever they want, they will get it if they are ready for it and prepared for it. But it's not to think, and I have everybody who comes to me is starting by, where do my skills fit for what kind of job or what kind of company? No, what do you want? What do you want and what do you like to do? Because we have skills as well that we have, but we don't automatically love to do them. So it's really to make sure that we have a job that we want, and that what we do in it is things that we like to do and we are strong in it, of course. So the first question is there. This person, I don't just want to be sensitive, not to say too much, so that, yeah. But it was a long time ago for this one, but it was in one of the big social media company that he applied to. I have another example where it's a person who is a humanitarian, and she chose to go into the sector of traveling.
Okay.
But more the luxury travel than so it's interesting. But again, it's really a question. Define first where you want to go. And I have people who say, for me, private sector, yes, but never a bank. And some are okay with anything. It's really to see, what do I want to do and where do I want to work. The example of the first one, he started by identifying what are the private companies that are that have a good policy and human resources one. He wanted to be in a company that was taking care of its staff, basically. So it was based on this kind of criteria at first, and then of course the type of job as well, and so on.
That's
But
great.
I don't know if it answers, but I think it's really that anything other. And then let's suppose that we don't have every skill we need. Then it's part of the strategy to say, okay, I need to do a training, or I need to do this or that. You know, it's part of the strategy to see, or sometimes it's a job that, okay, in 5 years I want to be there. In between, I will focus on this type of job so that it brings me what I need to get the big one I would like. So it's all a question around that as well.
You know, and actually I couldn't agree more, because it resonates in similar ways. Because when I did the shift the other way around from the private sector to humanitarian, actually I wanted to totally work for UNICEF in education. I don't know, it's also what I did in Cameroon during my sabbatical, but I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the experience. So of course I didn't get a job in UNICEF in education. But then I opened up more broadly, similar to what you explained, is kind of more, what do I want to do? And for me, what it became clear was that I wanted to work at the crossroads between sectors. So I was more zooming in, I want to actually work on cross-sector partnerships. And then that led me in the end to the ICRC. But it wasn't so much that I said I always wanted to work for the ICRC. I mean, now I can see why it's so great. But, you know, it was really this kind of exactly what you described, getting clear, what do I actually want to do? And then also what I also heard you say, and I think that's really important for listeners who are taking notes, or maybe not taking notes. So it's really, I noted 3 elements. It's get clear what you want, get clear what's no-goes, you know, so what is maybe the type of thing I'm really not comfortable doing, and then have some clear criteria how you choose. And then off you go, right?
Yeah, exactly. And to do that, that's the big thing. How do you do, and because I was in this phase when I explained when I became a mom, but I don't know what I want. And most people who come to me are like, but I don't know what I want. So in order to be able to say, I want that, the first thing to do is to take the time to question of who I am today. Who I am with the heart of the ICRC, or with the heart of a spouse, or with the heart of an expat, who I am without it, who I am today. So it's what are my values, personal, professional values, what are my character strengths, what are my qualities, my flaws. It's to look at that too, and then to really take stock of all my past experiences, because we forget everything we did in our life. And all our skills we developed as well. By doing that, suddenly you are like, oh yes, actually I find I forgot about that. Yes, that's a common thread in my past, and actually it's because I love to do that. So, and sometimes, you know, I have 4 different careers, very different one: teacher, manager for musician, coach, and in the ICRC I was in protection, I was deputy head of delegation, I did different things as well. It's so different, but actually there is a clear common thread in my but to know that, I had to take the time to find it, which is to accompany people, you know.
Great, I was about to ask, so what is the threat? Okay, so it's a
the threat is all my life, in every job I was supporting and accompanying people. Career guidance, for manager it was promoting them and accompanying them on the festivals and so on, the logistical administrative part. As a teacher, it was more with children and teenagers for their learning. And in the ICRC, I did a lot of coaching, managing, leading teams, and of course supporting as well beneficiaries. And you know, so in all my life, what I love to do is to support, accompany people, and ideally that's my impact statement, my mission statement is ideally it's to help them create positive changes in their lives. That's a bit what I think I try to do all my life, and what I want to continue to do. And so so before being able to identify what you want is really to take stock of who you are. And while you do that, you find out as well what you have to offer. And often is much more than what you think you have to offer. And it's when you start to say, for a humanitarian to see how you can translate things. Maybe somebody did a lot of project management, or another one, another, I announced in the discussion, but it made me think about, often I'm approached by humanitarians who say, oh, I'm too technical and specific, I will never find a job. And then the same day, I have another one who comes to me and says, I'm too generalist, I will never find a job. And actually, people, bosses or organizations need both. They need people who are technical and people who are generalists. Your profile is good, whatever. Now, what is important to know is what you want and what to do out of it, and how to sell it, even if it's not a nice word, but how to be able to speak about your profile. But to be able to speak about it, you need to know what you want. And like you said, what you want and what you don't want.
And you know what I guess will also probably happen to you. So once you could clearly see that red line like this, I want to help people, then I guess you could also see what skills and experiences helped you to get there. So you kind of start shaping your pitch, right? So you get clear of your North Star, and then you say like, and because of that, I actually have skill A, B, C, D, right?
Yeah, exactly. And recently, because I redid this work actually recently, because I'm in front of a big transition, because we go back to Switzerland this summer. So I really did it again, looking at what were my values and everything. And I kind of forgot that I was a teacher. And actually, it makes sense with who I am. So it's really as well skills that I have. It's not only coaching, but training and teaching. And like you said, it's really by having this understanding that then you know what you have to offer, and identify as well what you want to do. It helps as well in that. Not only that, because once you have done, you know who you are and what you have to offer, it's to take the time as well to find out what you want. And for that, but you are ready to do that. But to do that, the tip, if people are taking notes or not, like you said, the tip is to project yourself, not only what do I want to do next year, but really on a long term, to have, like you said, a North Stars. And you at the moment, a lot of people are very uncertain in the humanitarian field about what's next professionally because of what's going on. And I compare that to a sailor in the big ocean. They are in the middle of a storm, in the middle of big waves, and everything is very complicated. The sailor, he knows where he goes. And that's the only way for him not to get stuck and not to get lost. It's to have this cap and to know where you go. And by having this cap, whatever is happening around you, you can deal with it, even if it's not easy, but you can deal with it. And it's true that when we are expats and humanitarians, we tend not to know what we want next, even in these fields. Be a bit passive, waiting for the organization kind of to decide for us. But and so it sounds a bit counterproductive to say, okay, I will try to know what I want. Yes, you can know. Yes, you have to clarify what you want to do in 5 years, who you want to be in 5 years. You can clarify that. And then if life through your way things that are different than what was planned, it's okay. You will change your strategy, but you still have this gap knowing where you want to go.
I really liked that, and I connected to a point I wanted to touch on. We're already getting there, so that's great. Because, part of the humanitarian identity is to be flexible, adaptable, to be ready to go. Like today you go to Afghanistan, tomorrow you go to God knows where. So that's part of how you have to be part of the game, right? And that's almost counterintuitive to planning your career. So I like what you just said, that it's maybe through having this North Star that allows you to be a bit of both.
Yes, and I think exactly. And for those who don't like to sail, they can drive. You have to be in the driver's seat. You cannot be the co-pilot. You are not the co-pilot. You are the driver of your career and life. I know it's easy to say, but it's really that. If you know, it's easy as well. Those who are saying, I don't know what to do, it's because they don't know what they want in the long term. If you know what you want in the long term, you know what decision and what choice to make today as well. because it will make sense. For example, you will say, okay, I take this post in Afghanistan because I know that later on I would like to do that, and this post serves actually my long-term goal. Or I will not take it because it doesn't. So it's really but I will ask for something else. And then maybe, of course, we have to take into account that there are operational needs and we are not in control of everything. But I believe if you are clear about what you want in the end, you can be more affirmative about it. You are more aligned about it, and that it will be as well easier to influence actually what's happening in your job. And I believe you will even help HR, because if you are very clear about who you are, what you have to offer, what are your strengths, and what you would be good for you, you can, you do the pitch for them and you can explain, and it helps. I know it's easier. Again, in reality, sometimes it's not that easy depending on a lot of things, but I think your HR is as well happy to have really a clear feedback about what's your plan for the next steps, short term and long term. So it's a win-win in both, I think.
I really like that, which also was another point I was reflecting on and wondering about, because also this whole need of the system to be agile, it sometimes can lead to people to take a not very proactive approach to their career planning and almost get a sense of entitlement. You kind of like, the system is going to sort it out for me because the system asked me to follow, and now where should I go? So have you experienced that in your coaching, and how did you help people to actually take this accountability and get into the driver's seat? I mean, how could somebody listening start doing that tomorrow?
Yeah, so it's completely what you say. So the system is such that because we are asked from the beginning to be available for operational needs and flexible and so on, we tend to quickly go in this where we kind of say, okay, they have to offer me something, I wait and see, and if they don't, I'm not very. So it's a bit complicated. Yeah, I face people in this position, but those who contact me are already thinking, okay, maybe it's not the right mindset to have, and willing to little by little go in this driver's seat. I think it's something very important that everybody goes in. You cannot wait for somebody to decide for you and expect that it will be as well the right decision, because he is not you. So how can he take the right decision? There is as well this mix. But I remember what is complicated with this thing is that we tend to be like that as well. Even it has sometimes an impact on the rest of our life, where we kind of stop being really proactive. So with the people who approach me, again, to be proactive, the only way I think to be proactive and take responsibility is to start to understand who we are. And I think most people, if they are not proactive, it's as well because they are just not clear. So they don't know how to be proactive. Yeah, now that I'm speaking aloud.
But that's a great insight, because what I hear is... Well, that's great. So what I hear, it's on one hand, it's a mindset shift, just to even realize, like, okay, it's actually up to me to be clear and propose. And then, of course, you might not always get what you propose, but at least you threw it out there. So maybe you get it next time around. But also, yeah, I mean, because you use the sailing analogy, and I use that a lot too. I really like sailing as an analogy. It's kind of like, you cannot arrive somewhere if you don't know where you're going. So you have to first understand where you want to go, and then you can put your compass and your North Star and God knows what. But if you don't know, then you just, you're just carried away by the waves, and you might not wherever.
And if you don't know where you want to go, you cannot arrive there. And how can HR even kind of give you the right proposition if you don't know? They don't know. It's a bit of mix, but it's true. But I think the way to become proactive is to start by clarifying, what do I want really? And it's no judgment around that. I was there. And in general, I think everybody is there at one stage or another, not having really life goals. I often have people at companies saying suddenly, but I'm used to do a strategy and plan of action and have goals for my work, but I never applied that to my life. And we all tend not to do that. But actually, if we want to get somewhere or to have the life we wish, we need to have life goals, professional goals, life goals first, and then a plan and a strategy to get there. So
and to adjust, because the other thing I'm realizing is what you, anybody absolutely wanted 10 years ago is maybe not what we want today. And that's okay. And then you just have to step back and look again, okay, what do I want today? And maybe that's something different.
That's why coming back to your values, they change, the values change over time. So it's to look at them and make, and you, when speaking about change, what is important, because you said it's as well to adapt. About change, we tend to think that failure or not succeeding in something is that we are the problem. I didn't get the job I wanted, I'm the problem. No, it's not us the problem, it's the strategy. So it means either we didn't plan correctly, or the strategy was not accurate. So it's whenever we don't get this job, or we don't it's to think, okay, what can I change in my strategy to make it happen the next time? And not to question ourselves, but to question the way we try to get there. It's more about that. And that's very reassuring to know that we can, it's to adapt the way we go there, and we can do that. That's easy. We can have an impact on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I also tell people I'm working with and myself, to use another analogy, it's like dating, interviewing, because it's not just, did they select me? It's also, do I want to get married? Do I want to be employed by that organization? And maybe you find out, actually, I don't, because maybe I don't like the values, I don't like the vibe, I don't like whatever, So it's really both ways. That it's not just, again, it's this proactivity. It's not just they decided for me. It's like, no, but maybe actually it was just not meant to be because it wasn't a fit. And that goes both ways.
Exactly. I love that. And that comes back to those who look for a job outside the sector or in the sector, is when you are interviewed, it's not only for yourself to sell to the new employer, but it's as well the employer to sell the job. I mean, you have the right to ask questions, and often it's very well perceived. If you ask questions, you are generally interested in if this job is really a fit for you or not, because it shows that you put a lot of thinking and motivation into applying to this one. And it brings me to when you spoke about dating. I love the comparison to that. It's often when we try to do a change, what is difficult is self-confidence, and we believe we don't have enough that. So by doing this work of knowing who I am and what I have to offer, and knowing what you want, then the next step is to be in the B, I often say. It's to start to, okay, I want to be this person, and it's really to start to be this person, even if you don't have yet this job. It looks a bit strange to say that, but by being in this B, you will start to make the right actions in order to get what you want as well. So it's it's very important to quickly say, okay, I want now to be a project manager in the private sector I invent. And it's your pitch, and you become clear, and you really speak about that, and you are ready in what you want.
I really like that. It's kind of like fake it until you make it. But, even if you feel like you're faking it at the moment, just really feel it and, incorporate it already.
Yeah, exactly. Because often you don't fake it, actually. You are already this person, because you choose to. It's just that often there is this syndrome of imposter at the beginning, especially when there are changes or self-confidence, but it's really to be in the B. Because if you are there, you will do the right thing. A lot of, we often say, I have to do that to have that, and then to be happy. But no, it's the opposite. I have to be happy to make the most of what I have at the moment in order to do what I need to do and have what I want. So it's it's not from me. I was just thinking it's, I just don't have the name of the person who said that, but
yeah, it's so deep.
I can't send you the name, but I
yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, cool. Look, I think we could go on forever. Maybe before we move to the quick fire burst questions that I challenge you on, is there anything else, also linking it back to identity? Is there anything you feel like we haven't touched on yet that you think would be useful for listeners to reflect on or to do?
Yeah, very good question. I think we discussed a lot of things. Really, we looked more at the identity linked to the humanitarian field and the statute of expat spouse, and linked to the professional as well. There are a lot of different ways to approach, I think, identity. But in this regard, yes, I don't see that we have forgotten. I don't know. I don't know if
I also feel like we went to so many interesting places. So anyway, this is a conversation starter. Great
Yes.
if nothing immediate pops up. So with that, let's go to the quick fire burst, which basically the challenge is I'll be throwing a question at you, and I challenge you to answer with one word or maybe two words. And, I do that with all my guests, and it's really amazing to see patterns emerge. So I'm really curious to see what your answers will be. So are you ready?
I am. I will try.
Sure. Let's go. Please describe your leadership style in one word.
In one word, I would say authentic.
Authentic, nice. What's the key to successful teamwork?
So I believe a lot of people say that. I don't know, but for me, it's really communication.
Yeah. One must-read book.
I would say one must writer or no? It's Brené Brown, and from her, I read The Gift of Imperfection, but she wrote a lot of other books which are great. Brené Brown and The Gift of Imperfection is very interesting.
Yeah, no, I love her. I read probably at least, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them. And there's some good TED Talks too for people that don't want to read.
Yeah, exactly. And the authentic, it comes a bit from her, I think, when I mentioned authentic leadership. She has even a book as well on that. But
yeah, authentic and vulnerability. I think that's the 2 big themes she puts forward. That's great.
Exactly.
What type of dream job would you do if it wasn't your current one?
If it wasn't my current one, it would be, like I said before, accompanying and supporting people. At the moment, I do that.
So could there be another way to do that? Is there any crazy dream? I don't know, take them skiing or something. Is there any
maybe not skiing, sorry, even if I'm Swiss and people would hate me to say that, but I wouldn't take them skiing. It's too cold for me. No, accompanying, anything actually. I'm interested in anything where I can support people. So could be with migrants, for example, or it comes back to ICRC, not with migrants, but to accompany people in their life. It's transitional migrants, they do as well, life and career even, but life transitions. So accompanying migrants, for example, could be one of the dream job, or accompanying young people for their first job. Or
nice, yeah.
That I would love to, yes. Students,
and I think you mentioned you have teenage kids, so I guess you'll get there soon, right?
Yeah, it's already a kind of discussion. They are 15 and 17, but yes, the one of 17 years old knows what he wants, but still has a lot of ideas. And the second one, for the moment, he doesn't know what he wants. So yes, it will be discussions to start.
Interesting, cool. So if you could have one superpower, I don't know, flying, teleporting, what would be the superpower you'd like to have?
I didn't, what would that be? Flying. Yeah, flying, so I can go everywhere without any environmental impact. If I can fly without and go everywhere I want, be close to my family, be close and continue to discover other places. Yes, flying would be nice.
Nice, flying, cool. And what are you most grateful for?
My family at large. So my family, my nuclear family with my husband and my 2 teenagers, and my family at large, my parents, who really supported me unconditionally all over my different paths and choices, my brother, and as well my best friends. I have a few best friends that I consider really come family too. So yes.
Beautiful. Nice. So that's it. Well done.
So any trends that continues? Or?
So yeah, I'll give you the grade later. You used to be a teacher, right? So
Yes.
no, this is not graded. So as we wrap this up, as a parting thought, what career advice would you give your own 18-year-old self or your 17-year-old teenage son, or really any young professional who's just starting out now?
Oh, I love this question, and comes back to my dream of young people. But yeah, I would say no dream is too big. And that I would not only say to a 18 years old self or person, but to everybody. There is no dream that is too big. Don't do what is expected from you, but really do what you want. And as well, yeah, maybe something very important. There is no, that I understood all over my different transitions. There is no right and wrong choice. There is just a choice. And then it's to make sure that it's aligned with who you are and what you want. But there is no, even the wrong choice becomes with, like I said, with a positive outcome, and you learn from it, and then you go to another choice. But to put less pressure on ourselves, there is no right and wrong choices. There are choices at one stage, and it's fine.
Wonderful. That was very inspiring. Thanks so much, Nancy. That was really deep, really inspiring. I hope that's giving also some really practical ideas for people listening to start thinking about their careers more proactively. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you to you for this great opportunity and for this great postcard that you started. It's really very interesting and inspiring. And I think, so I'm very happy and honored to have been part of that today. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
So that was it for today. Thanks for listening. And if you like this, subscribe and share it with anybody who might benefit from it too. And remember, leadership isn't a title, it's a mindset. And when you realign with what matters most to you and take one intentional step, you create ripples at work, at home, and in how you live. So pause, breathe, and begin. Because change always starts from within and with one little step. So what ripple are you creating today? Bye for now and see you next time.